So you have a bunch of interview transcripts sitting in a folder, and now you're trying to figure out the most important, your number one customer opportunity for you to focus on, for you to build a solution around. And it's really hard to get from A to B. So this video will walk through my process, which is very much based around Teresa Torres' process, but I'll just walk through with a real case study how I do that, and also the three Claude Code skills that I use. I love writing skills because it forces me to lay down my exact process and also to codify or to lay down what good looks like for me, like what my judgment looks like. So let's dive in. Let's start with the case study. The case study is my new tech job, which is loosely based on a client of mine. The job to be done is for the job seekers on this. So it's basically a platform or two-sided marketplace that matches job seekers to jobs. And in this case, it's tech talents that is looking for a job at AI forward companies. I'm focusing on a job to be done for the job seeker, which is find a fitting job at an AI forward company. So that's the case study. So we have here this folder of interview transcripts. Jumping ahead, in a previous article, I talked about the ICP screen. So I have a different skill called ICP screen, which basically goes through a folder that you point it to, and it asks you for an ICP. Or it deducts an ICP or potential ICPs based on the transcripts and asks you for, okay, what ICP, ideal customer profile, should I focus for? And it then creates this temp folder, ICP screened temp, which has copies of all the transcripts that match that ICP. Why do I do that? If you do your analysis or your product discovery based on data from participants or from people from various ICPs, you will be mixing jobs to be done. You will be mixing pain points, etc., and it will basically just spit out noise. So I'm always very bullish on first figuring out who is our ideal customer profile or who is our target audience, and then only looking at data that comes from that ICP or target audience so that we can get clear signal. So that's what this ICP screen skill exists for. And the output of that is this ICP screened temp folder, which basically just contains copies of the transcripts that actually match at ICP, and it comes with this screening overview that says, okay, these are the matches. This is the ICP that you set to focus on, which is the software engineers, and these are the matches. And why did they match, right? So, and that is this folder, and that's basically the sandbox or the playground where we will be executing everything else on. So a lot of teams now happily start extracting opportunities from these interviews, right? So they go like, oh, okay, one of the opportunities is it's annoying to get ghosted, for example. And they start extracting these and they come out with this flat list of opportunities. When I say opportunity, I'm using the language of Teresa Torres. So I'm thinking pain points and problems, obviously, but also wishes, desire, wants, needs, so beyond problems. So they start extracting these and they come up with this big list. The problem is that this list lacks context, specifically to which moment in time or to which phase within a job to be done job map. So to which moment in time this was associated. This is very important. So if, for example, let's go back to opportunity, it's annoying to get ghosted. That's very different if it's after submitting your CV or after having done 5 interviews with a company, right? So the specific phase within the job to be done where your protagonist is, or the distinct moment in time to which this opportunity is associated, is very important context. So Teresa Torres calls these distinct moments in time, and she works with experience maps. I've also tried using Tony Ulwick's, so ODI's job steps in a job to be done. Basically, what I'm trying to do is find these distinct steps or phases to which I can associate the opportunities to. And these steps or phases become the first level in my OST. I'm mixing the language a bit because I've been trying to work with Teresa's experience maps and also Tony Owitz's job maps. And in the end, I landed on something that really works for me, which is a bit more pragmatic, and I call them my own phase maps. I'll explain that in depth in the article. But basically, the first step is for me to figure out, in this job to be done, in my job to be done example, I have find a fitting job for these job seekers, I have phases. And I'll associate my opportunities to those phases. And I need to do that so that it's more easy for me to tell when I've extracted a lot of opportunities from like 10 different transcripts for when I see opportunities being listed by different interviewees, it helps me to identify, are they actually the same or are they distinct, right? Because I now know which phase they belong to. And in general, it will allow me to map the opportunity space because I have that first level of my OST. So that's why this is so extremely important. And I've seen many teams skip it and they get into trouble. So it says, okay, I need the folder. It's this one. So I'll give it this. Look there. Right, this is my playground, this temp folder, and it will say it already found a phase map because I already did it so that we can move a little bit faster. It's this one. So basically it said, okay, rehashed. Okay, this was the ICP. Yeah. And these are the phases. So this is like an example. The skill will always ask you to go first because you are the subject matter expert. So you should have in mind what are the phases in this job to be done. If you don't have a clue, you're probably in trouble, right? And then you can iterate with the skill on the phases. So in the case of my job to be done, it's again finding a fitting job. It has this first phase: define your ideal next role in company. Then find interesting open roles, opportunities. Then apply and do the initial screen. Then prepare for your interviews. Then execute your interviews and then decide, negotiate, and transition. So these are very distinct phases, meaty, and any pain points or wishes or desires can always be associated to these phases. So it's still checking. So it has here this whole phase map. Now I will move on to the next. Let's do it in a fresh chat. Let's do the opportunity analyst. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through each of these interviews in this temp folder, and we're going to pluck out customer opportunities and insights and associate them to the phases. So it's going to ask for the path. It's going to ask for the primary product metric. Why? Because we only want to look at opportunities that are actually likely to drive our product metric. There's often a lot of stuff being mentioned by interviewees that they think would be kind of cool. The button could be blue. But if we did that, it would likely have no impact on our product metric at all. So I'm going to say, okay, my primary product metric is increase the percentage of talents that find a job within 3 months using our. And then the phase map. This is the phase map. So now we have all of them. So it has this skill uses the theory of Teresa Torres. So it's been trained on that to understand what is a customer opportunity. So it's not a business opportunity. It should not be a solution in disguise. It should be phrased from the customer's perspective in their language as much as possible. And it has all of these kind of rules. You can see that in the actual skill file. I will link my GitHub repository. The skill file basically has all of this theory in it, right? That's all that it is. And it also has 2 filters. So firstly, it filters out any opportunity that likely will not move this product metric. And it also filters out things that are already solved. And one thing that I learned during interviews, I often ask, so I also included an interview transcript in here. I often ask, think about this job to be done, right? Finding a fitting job in tech, and tell me something that is difficult or painful about it. I start with that. And then they say, okay, this sucks. And then I'll be like, okay, now tell me about the last time that happened, right? So I'll ask the story, usually after anchoring them on something that's actually painful. When I didn't do that, people started telling an enormous story. And then in the end, when I asked whether that's something that happens often or whether it's actually painful or important at all, they would say, actually, no. So I spend all my time listening to a story that doesn't really matter. So I'll anchor them on that. And then when they list these phases and they'll list these opportunities, these pain points or wishes or desires, I will always ask, is that already solved now? Because often they say, oh yeah, actually I have already a solution for it. And it's actually perfect, right? They just wanted to talk about something that used to be a problem. And I'll ask, how important or painful or urgent or whatever is that on a scale of 1 to 5? And I'll use that later in order to prioritize the opportunities so I don't have to reach. So what happens now is it's all So all of this is added inline. So it now extracted these opportunities and it did it inline. It placed it inline in the interview transcript. Why? Because, so here we go, insights, So I appended a new section to each interview transcript, which is the opportunity analyst skill detects opportunities and insights. Lives at the bottom. Why? I like it in line with the interview transcript so I can easily scroll back up and see, okay, is this right? Right? Do I agree with this? So that's why it's in line. And then if I want to, so it does, so let me just go through it. So it has opportunities on top. These are the things that it picked out. Very nice. It's in the language of the user. It has some context around it. Okay, which phase does it belong to? Which importance, if I capture it. So the skill is very much instructed to, if there is no importance indicated by the user, to not fill it in. Do not fill in the blanks. But if we have it, please grab it because I'm going to need it later for prioritization. The moment within the phase, like when exactly does it happen? Who are the key players that are involved? So basically a lot of content, like context around this opportunity. So it has all these opportunities it's extracted, but it also has some opportunities that don't fit any phase. That said, okay, we have these phases from the phase map, but they're kind of like in a different buckets. And then I have my non-priority opportunities because, well, they were mentioned that they don't actually move the product metric at all. They're not really matching. Or they were mentioned, but then the person afterwards said that they're already solved and addressed. And then there's insights. So I have all of these different buckets and it did that for all of these. Now, I will check in the end. So I will read through all of them. And if I find a lot where I think, hey, a lot of these, there's a lot of things that don't actually fit the phase map. What I can do is I can run the phase map analyst again. And then it will go through and it will say, okay, let me now check if there's a lot of opportunities that are in this bucket of doesn't match any phase, and it can rewrite the phase map. Now, if you want to start fresh, there's also the opportunity analyst reset. What that skill does, it just removes, it goes through all of these transcripts again, and it for all of them removes this section. Because whenever you run the skill, the opportunity analyst, it just looks at, if a transcript already has this section, it's not going to touch it. If it doesn't have a section, it will just run it again. So yes, same folder. So here is when we're just going to look at the phase map again, based on the opportunities and insights that we extracted to see if there's any important phase that we might have missed. Anyhow, important. The flow here is first we run the ICP screen, always, to make sure that we are only looking at transcripts that belong to our ICP. Then we run the phase map to have basically a spine for the discovery work. Then we run the opportunity analyst, which plucks out opportunities and applies these filters. And associates them with the phase map. And then we can run the phase map again to make sure that the phase map that we had, the spine that we had, is actually robust enough to carry the rest of the discovery work. I recommend that you read through the actual skill files. So I'll post a link to my GitHub repo where you can read through the skill files, because that's where I codify my exact process and my exact judgments. Like, what is an opportunity, where I rely a lot on Teresa Torres' content. I always recommend that you manually check through this, right? Whether it's doing a good enough job. I would never just rely on this. There's, of course, the question whether we should even have skills for this or whether humans should just do it. I think there's a lot to be said for humans should just do it. But the thing is, I know in reality, people don't do it, right? They don't have time for it. So I prefer to write a decent skill for it. So at least it gets done in some way, than that it doesn't get done at all. I hope this helps. Feel free to fork all of these skills and please tell me if they work for you or if anything is unclear.